Mirembe was a young woman who wanted more than what life had given her. She had dreams of wealth, status, and power. And when she met Chike, a married man, she saw an opportunity. Chike was everything she wanted: rich, charming, and, most importantly, available to her. His wife, Amina, seemed unaware of the attention he was giving Mirembe, and Mirembe believed she could take over Amina's life. Mirembe was determined to make Chike hers. She didn't care that he was married. To her, it was just a matter of time before Amina would lose him. Mirembe started keeping track of Amina's movements, learning everything about her routine. She wanted to know when she was home, when she was out, and who she was with. Every little piece of information about Amina was a step closer to getting what Mirembe wanted. She saw Amina as weak, as someone who didn't deserve Chike. As Mirembe's obsession grew, so did her plan to manipulate Chike. She started to play games, dropping subtle hints about Amina's flaws and her supposed lack of attention towards him. At the same time, Mirembe pretended to be a caring friend to Amina, secretly weaving lies to make Amina feel uncertain about her own marriage. Chike started pulling away from his wife, but Mirembe had a plan to make sure he never went back. Mirembe was careful with her every move, watching Amina closely, making sure no one suspected her. She was slowly taking control, not just of Chike, but of Amina's happiness. All Mirembe wanted was to be the woman who held the power, and she believed Amina's life would be hers soon enough. Mirembe's plan was taking shape. She began by creating small but effective problems in Amina's marriage. She knew that the best way to weaken Amina's confidence was to plant seeds of doubt in her mind. She started to spread rumors about Amina, making it seem like she wasn't being a good wife. At the same time, Mirembe worked on Chike, ensuring that his attention was always on her and never fully on Amina. Mirembe's next move was to manipulate the people around Amina. She made sure to get close to Amina's friends and family, subtly planting doubts in their minds about Amina's loyalty and character. She wanted to make Amina feel isolated, so that she would start questioning her own worth. Little by little, Amina began to feel the pressure of the rumors. She started noticing Chike's emotional distance and the way his attention was drifting towards Mirembe. Amina confronted Chike, but he assured her that everything was fine. However, the reassurance wasn't enough to calm Amina's growing fears. Mirembe's manipulation had already begun to take its toll. She continued to play her game, making sure that Chike would become more and more frustrated with Amina. As Amina's trust in her husband crumbled, Mirembe knew that her plan was working. Mirembe started spending more time with Chike, giving him the comfort and support that he had been missing from his wife. She didn't rush things, but played the long game, knowing that eventually, Chike would choose her over Amina. Each day, Mirembe's influence over him grew stronger, and Amina's hold on her marriage became weaker. As the days passed, Amina started to feel something was wrong. She had always trusted her husband, Chike, but now, his behavior was starting to change. He was no longer as affectionate as he used to be, and he seemed distracted whenever they spent time together. At first, Amina tried to ignore it, but as time went on, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The distance between them had grown too noticeable to ignore. Amina began paying closer attention to Chike's actions. She noticed that he would often go out without telling her where he was going, or he would come home later than usual. She found unfamiliar numbers in his phone and overheard conversations that didn't add up. Her suspicions grew, but she didn't want to believe it. Amina was a loving wife, and the thought of her husband betraying her was too painful to consider. But as she started looking more closely, things didn't add up. She began finding more clues that suggested something was wrong. Amina decided to take matters into her own hands. She hired a private investigator to follow Chike and find out where he was going and who he was meeting. The investigator's findings shocked her. Chike was spending more time with Mirembe than with her, and the nature of their meetings was suspicious. Amina couldn't deny the truth anymore. The woman she thought was just an innocent acquaintance of her husband had been quietly undermining her marriage. The realization hit her hard, but it also lit a fire within her. She knew she had to confront Chike and find out the truth once and for all. What she didn't expect was how much this discovery would change her, and how she would start to take back control of her own life. Amina's confrontation with Chike didn't go as she had hoped. When she confronted him about his distance and the suspicions she had about his relationship with Mirembe, Chike became defensive. He denied everything, insisting that she was just being paranoid. His words were cold, and his dismissive attitude only deepened Amina's heartbreak. Despite his claims, Amina could feel the truth in her bones. She'd already discovered enough to know that something was wrong. but she wasn't going to let it break her. She knew she had to take control of the situation, not just for her marriage, but for her own peace of mind. Amina decided to watch Mirembe more closely. She followed her movements, trying to understand how deep her involvement with Chike really was. What she discovered was worse than she imagined. Mirembe had been manipulating not just Chike, but everyone around her, including Amina herself. The carefully planted seeds of doubt and the lies she spread had been slowly tearing Amina apart without her realizing it. Feeling betrayed, Amina knew she couldn't allow this to go on any longer. She started to take charge of her life, finding strength in her vulnerability. No longer willing to wait for Chike to change or Mirembe to stop, Amina decided to confront Mirembe directly. She would expose her for the manipulator she was, and in so doing, reclaim her power. With every ounce of strength, Amina faced Mirembe and Chike. In a calm, controlled voice, she exposed Mirembe's lies and manipulations, but instead of feeling angry, Amina felt a strange sense of peace. She had stopped being the victim. She was taking back her life. Mirembe's victory over Amina didn't bring her the happiness she had imagined. At first, she felt on top of the world. Chike had left his wife, and she had successfully managed to take her place. But as the days passed, Mirembe began to see a side of Chike that she hadn't expected. While he was physically with her, his heart and mind seemed distant. He wasn't as attentive as he once was, and the affection he had shown her during their affair had faded. Mirembe's life, which once seemed so perfect, began to unravel. The man she had fought for didn't love her the way she had hoped. She realized that Chike had only left Amina because she had made him believe that he was missing something in his life. But the truth was, he was just as lost with Mirembe as he had been with Amina. He didn't know what he wanted, and Mirembe was beginning to realize that she had been just a placeholder. As Mirembe grew more frustrated with Chike, she started reflecting on her actions. She had taken another woman's husband, believing it would give her the power she craved. But now she was stuck in a relationship that was falling apart. The guilt and regret started creeping in, making her feel trapped. She had won the battle, but she was losing the war. Mirembe began to question whether it was worth it. What was the point of winning a man if he didn't truly want her? She had destroyed Amina's life, only to find that the life she had built for herself was empty. Mirembe realized that she had become the very thing she despised, a woman who destroyed others for her own gain. Amina, on the other hand, was quietly rebuilding her life. The betrayal and heartbreak had been overwhelming, but it had also been the catalyst for her transformation. Instead of letting her marriage fall apart completely, Amina decided to focus on herself. She realized that her worth was never defined by Chike or Mirembe. It was her own strength, resilience, and determination that would guide her through this difficult time. Amina started by taking time for herself. She reconnected with her family and friends, people who had always supported her. They helped her see that she was much more than just a wife. She was a strong, independent woman capable of achieving greatness on her own. Amina began to focus on her career, something she had neglected in the past. She took courses, learned new skills, and became more confident in her abilities. Slowly, she began to rebuild her confidence and self-esteem, block by block. But it wasn't just her career that she focused on. Amina also started taking care of her physical and mental health. She joined a fitness class, went for long walks, and spent time in nature. These small changes made a big difference in how she felt about herself. Every day, she became stronger, not just physically, but emotionally as well. She knew that she had been through something painful, but that pain no longer controlled her. Amina's growth was visible to everyone around her. She became more empowered and determined, no longer waiting for someone else to validate her. Amina took back control of her life, and that made her stronger than ever. She realized that her future wasn't tied to Chike or Mirembe. It was hers to create, and she would not let anyone take that away from her. Mirembe's life was falling apart, and she could no longer ignore the consequences of her actions. The man she had fought so hard for, Chike, was no longer the man she had imagined. His emotional distance had become impossible to ignore, and it was clear that he was regretting his decision to leave Amina. He had started to question everything, including his relationship with Mirembe was growing desperate. She had sacrificed her own morals, manipulated others, and destroyed Amina's marriage, only to find that the man she had worked so hard to win didn't feel the same way. Chike was emotionally cold, withdrawn, and no longer gave her the attention she craved. Mirembe began to feel the weight of her guilt and the emptiness that had come with her victory. She thought she had won, but in reality, she had lost herself. To make matters worse, Mirembe's friends and family began to notice the change in her. She wasn't the confident, ambitious woman she once was. The guilt of what she had done to Amina and the loneliness of her relationship with Chike consumed her. She started to wonder if it had all been worth it. Was winning Chike really the victory she had imagined? Or had she just traded one form of pain for another? Mirembe tried to salvage her relationship with Chike, but he became more and more distant. The love that she thought she had was fading, and she realized that she had been living in a fantasy. She had spent so much time trying to destroy someone else's happiness that she had forgotten to take care of her own. Now Mirembe had nothing, no love, no respect, and no real sense of purpose. As Mirembe's world began to crumble, Amina's journey was far from over. After facing the heartbreak of betrayal, Amina chose to take control of her life. The devastation from Chike's actions could have broken her, but instead, it became the foundation of her transformation. Amina was no longer a woman waiting for validation from a man. She had learned to validate herself. She didn't wallow in self-pity. Instead, she turned her focus inward and began working on herself in every possible way. Amina reconnected with her family, those who had always supported her but whom she had distanced herself from in the past. She realized the importance of community and loved ones who helped her rediscover her own strength. Amina threw herself into her work, throwing herself into professional growth. She started new projects, joined leadership programs, and sought out opportunities to build her career. The work that she had put off for so long became a new source of joy and pride. Her sense of independence grew stronger with every new skill she mastered. But it wasn't just about career growth for Amina. She also focused on her physical and mental health. She began exercising regularly, something she hadn't done in a long time. She meditated, read books, and practiced self-care. With each passing day, Amina became more confident and centered, knowing that she was enough, just as she was. Amina's transformation was inspiring to those around her. She became a symbol of strength and resilience. Where she once relied on a relationship for a sense of worth, she now stood tall on her own. Amina's journey wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her life and becoming the best version of herself. As Amina began to rebuild her life, Mirembe's world was collapsing. Chike, the man she had fought so hard to take from Amina, was growing increasingly indifferent. The love she thought she had won was no longer there. Mirembe had tried to manipulate the situation to her favor, but now it was clear that Chike wasn't the man she had dreamed of. She had sacrificed her morals, caused heartache, and destroyed Amina's life. Yet she found herself alone, unfulfilled, and guilt-ridden. Chike wasn't the Prince Charming she had hoped for. He had only been a means to an end, and now that she had him, she realized the cost of her actions. Chike had no emotional attachment to her. He had simply been lost, looking for something he thought he was missing. Mirembe tried to salvage the relationship, but it was futile. Chike was distant, disconnected, and no longer willing to fight for their relationship. The reality of her choices hit her hard. She had been so focused on winning, on taking something that wasn't hers, that she had forgotten the most important lesson of all. Love and honesty cannot be built on lies and manipulation. Meanwhile, Amina was thriving. She had let go of her need for revenge and instead focused on her own healing. She had grown stronger and more independent, realizing that she didn't need Chike or anyone else to define her worth. Her life was now about what she could achieve, not what others had taken from her. The contrast between Amina's newfound strength and Mirembe's downfall was undeniable. Amina had found peace by moving on, while Mirembe was left with nothing but regret. In the end, Mirembe's world crumbled as she was left to face the consequences of her actions. Chike, the man she had fought for, was emotionally distant and detached. He no longer had the passion for her that he had once shown, and Mirembe realized too late that her victory had come at a high price. She had destroyed Amina's marriage and manipulated everyone around her, but in the process, she had lost herself. Chike, after months of uncertainty, decided he couldn't continue with Mirembe. His regret was clear, and the Kuldan tea escaped the guilt of what he had done to Amina. He reached out to Amina, hoping to mend their broken relationship. But Amina, having grown into a stronger version of herself, was no longer interested in what he had to offer. She had moved on from the pain and betrayal. Amina's journey had led her to a place of peace. She didn't need Chike or anyone else to validate her. She had rebuilt her life on her own terms, finding strength in her independence and resilience. The woman who once felt lost was now empowered, confident, and free. Mirembe however, was left alone. Her manipulation had not only destroyed Amina's life, but her own as well. She had fought for something that wasn't worth having and lost everything in the process. The love and attention she had craved from Chike were no longer there, and she was left to deal with the fallout of her selfish actions. As Amina moved on to a brighter future, Mirembe's life was left in tatters, a painful reminder that betrayal and revenge come with a heavy price.